Welcome to a new episode of TTG Conversations 5 Questions video series. I'm Karen Yu, Group Editor of TTG Asia Media. In this episode, we will talk about the role LCCs play in a post-lockdown travel recovery and what Asian LCCs must do to remain competitive. Giving us insight on this topic is Mike Barrera, Vice President for Product Management, LCC segment at Sabre. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you. Welcome. It's great to be here.
I've got 5 questions for you, and here's the first. The pandemic has been especially challenging for airlines. Can you give us a snapshot of how LCCs across the world have fared throughout the travel disruption?
Sure. It's really been an exciting time to be in the travel industry. And, the LCC sector has really been one of the most interesting to watch throughout the pandemic. We've seen a lot of different trends across different markets, and there's different pictures of the recovery emerging across the world. When travel started up again, we started to see a recovery, and we saw the recovery happening. We would see it month over month. But the other thing that we saw really were that LCCs were leading the way. They were leading the way at the beginning of the recovery, and they continue to do so. This is largely because, one, the LCC strength is in domestic and regional markets. And as soon as people were able to travel again, they did, even if they couldn't travel very far. We saw a robust recovery in markets with strong domestic aviation markets, such as the US, which is open internationally. But we also saw recoveries in markets like China, which have no international tourism, but the domestic market still rebounded and the LCCs were leading the way. The other thing was, despite the pandemic, we're seeing a lot of new startups in the ULCC and LCC sectors. The LCC market is really becoming extremely competitive and more competitive than ever before, with new players coming into the mix. These new airlines know where the opportunities are to be seized. And as we move further into the recovery, I think we're going to see that they want to make sure that they're in a position to capture these new opportunities.
Casting your vision on the Asia Pacific region now, what opportunities are available to LCCs as travel picks up pace?
Yeah, that's a great question. The industry has been through an unparalleled disruption. We're at a critical time for LCCs and the ecosystem as a whole. And the opportunities are limitless for those airlines who have taken time to really think about their business model and the technology they need to support these. And they're really now prepared to capture the recovery and create catalysts for growth. To give you an idea, the opportunity on offer for the LCCs globally is that the LCCs are projected to account for the most of the industry growth over the next 5 years. So think about that. In the entire industry, LCCs are going to be the industry growth over the next 5 years. LCC passenger share will rise from 33% in 2019 to over 40% in 2025. One growth, for example, is Ryanair carried more passengers in May than any other month in its history. And this trend continues with low-cost carriers like Ryanair and Wizz Air continuing to lead the recovery in the European aviation sectors. Mm-hmm. Startups, and especially in the APAC region, we're seeing are increasing from 21% to 28%. We've seen 90 new airlines emerging recently with carriers like My Airlines in Malaysia, Akasa Air in India, Toki Air in Japan, and Super Airjet in Indonesia, just to name a few. LCCs really have a prime opportunity to create new revenue stream that have really been, and they've really been historically able to pivot faster. For example, they're launched new routes and they already have operational models designed to help reduce overhead. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The other thing we see, it's vital that LCCs are prepared to seize the opportunities that lie ahead. They simply can't rely on the historical models and sit back and wait for the recovery traffic. One really interesting innovation in the APAC region is AirAsia and their AirAsia app and their OTA aspirations. They really see themselves as going to be generating more than 50% of the revenue from non-AirAsia related products in the next few years. Are they going to be successful at it? I don't know. But they certainly are innovating, and they're leading the way, and they're really leading the way to leverage your brand for retailing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You're right, Mike. Okay, pre-pandemic, LCCs had to manage costs very carefully in order to compete on price. Has this become a challenge now that the cost of operations is rising and travelers' key considerations are shifting away from a price-only fixation and towards health assurances, quality of experiences, and sustainable travel?
Yeah, this is something that we think about all the time, and something that our innovative partners in the industry are thinking about. There are a number of business challenges we see from our customers, and these that you're talking about there are coming to the forefront. LCCs continue to focus, and they have to be focused on what makes them successful. And that's maximizing utilization of their aircraft, driving down their base fares to stimulate demand on existing routes, and to spark interest in new ones. But as we've talked about, there's fierce competition and growing pressure on costs. And really, how do you manage traveler expectations while at the same time managing cost and ensuring that the airline's mission critical systems are secure, reliable, and stable? I think this is where technology becomes even more important for LCCs. The key question is really that LCCs have been answering during these times is, how can I use technology, particularly self-service technology, to increase the passenger experience as they traverse this new world of travel? So for LCCs, this idea of increased choice and levels of service does not necessarily mean greater costs. LCCs are particularly well suited to adopt new technologies, given that their operations are much simpler, with fewer partnerships, and their technology platforms are generally more adaptive to these new technologies. Mm-hmm. In conjunction, our airline and travel agency partners are telling us that their customers are valuing the right experience over a really, cost-focused or tight is right mentality. We think that LCCs will have a unique advantage in the marketplace going forward. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We recently carried out some research which found that travelers are considering much more factors than ever before. The value of information about health and hygiene measures, as well as flexibility on rebooking cancellation policies, they're really prepared to pay more to feel safe and secure. So it's important that LCCs really look beyond just stimulating traffic with low fares. They need to think about how they meet passenger expectations to win new and repeat business. And all of these emerging requirements for flexibility, sustainability, and health actually create new opportunities for LCCs to engage with fintech offerings, with expanded health-specific cancellation policies, and interact with sustainability companies offering carbon offsets, and even partner with railways and other vendors to offer transportation services that may present a lower carbon footprint. LCCs usually fly newer fleets, allowing them to offer flights at a lower carbon footprint than many of their FCC competitors. For example, Wizz Air in Europe shows their carbon footprint on their booking site as compared to other carriers in their marketplace as a competitive advantage in flight selection. So as the consumer is demanding more, LCC carriers should leverage the demand to offer new and innovative products so customers can tailor their travel with the health risk and sustainability profile that meets their preferences.
Mm-hmm. Those are very promising findings. I can resonate with those findings, especially the need for health assurances and wanting to pay more just to have that flexibility and that certainty. Now, LCCs are regarded as disruptors of air travel. Can they disrupt themselves in this new era of travel, and how?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, we're thinking about disrupting ourselves as well, right? I think, as you're trying to, emerge from this world-changing event that we've all lived through, LCCs certainly have a legacy of disruption. When they came to market as a traveler, all of a sudden you were able to select what you wanted to pay for and what you didn't want to pay for. It might be important for you to have a seat with extra leg room, but for example, you may not have wanted hand luggage or you didn't want a meal. So, this mindset really is the core to the LCC ethos, and LCCs, until very recently, competed on cost alone. And this caused a race to the bottom for the lowest airfare, which was often a loss leader, and the LCCs only made money off of their ancillaries, which is still the case today. So there's much fiercer competition, really from these startups that we're talking about, from other LCCs, but also there's a lot of full service carriers adopting LCC tenants and LCC business models, right? So it's not just competition coming from one side. So to truly differentiate, airlines need to understand the needs of the traveler, and they need to maximize every opportunity throughout the journey experience. Airlines need to understand that the power of retailing is maximizing their opportunity and monetizing products that can even be competitive to their core business. So as we discussed, airlines like AirAsia and Sabre in South Africa are starting to experiment here. And they're selling airlines and they're selling inventory that is not their core inventory, and they're transitioning to a true retailing model where interaction with the traveler is the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. How can technology come into picture for LCCs looking to do things better? You spoke about how you could use technology to improve the customer experience. In particular, how can technology improve LCC's partnership with the trade to drive air travel and bookings?
Yeah, and again, I think this is interesting because we're starting to take, a look at the industry from the other end and looking at how the trade is impacting and how they can help LCCs as we emerge from COVID. And listen, the pandemic has obviously been terrible. It's great, terrible human cost, economic costs all over the world. But out of this tragedy and this difficulty, it's also been a catalyst for change. Everyone's been relooking at their core business models and how they do things. And it's for us at Sabre, it's been an opportunity to accelerate our technological transformation. This is a really critical year for us in our move to the Google Cloud. And we're pressing ahead with our innovation partnerships with Google and American Express GBT. And this is all going to allow us to deliver new products, reduce our cost, and help streamline our operations. And our LCC customers are thinking about their own technological transformation. Again, we aren't the only organization that's thinking about this change. And they're at a crossroads. They can plan and prepare, or they can wait and react. Many LCCs traditionally relied on direct distribution and their own .com. We even talked about how LCCs are looking at their brand as an online travel agency. But they are also thinking about and understanding the value of the travel agency, especially when travelers are seeking increasing amounts of information and advice and support about COVID restrictions and about different requirements I need to enter this country. Collaboration between the different strands of the travel ecosystem is more important now than ever. So they want to get their content in front of those agents, and they are increasingly turning to global distribution systems such as the Sabre GDS to maximize their reach and to ensure that travel agencies can book their content along with the FSC content. And we're seeing this more and more from LCCs. They want to ensure that they have a stable platform. They want to ensure that they can pick and choose solutions that work best for their airlines, that they innovate in ways that to increase their revenue, and they can personalize their offer based on the market and the passenger. And they have had the speed to market in these evolving times. LCCs also have prime opportunities to change the way they operate and at and beyond the airport. Just because we've always done something a certain way doesn't mean that we have to continue to do so. For example, the pandemic means we want contactless touch points along the journey as much as possible. We're seeing long queues in some of the airports. All I got to do is turn on the news and see all of the, the news reports about flight cancellations and airport lines as a result of the heavy travel demand and the staffing shortages. By embracing new ways to streamline operations, LCCs can improve the experience for travelers, gaining really an important loyalty while reducing their own costs and relieving pressure on the staff. For example, we see a lot of interest in our Radix Go platform, which removes the confines from the check-in desk, allows agents to sell anywhere, provides biometric kiosk capabilities and biometric and remote bag drop capabilities. So whether it's in the line at the queue, at the gate, in an airline lounge, or at the hotel lobby, we provide the additional touch points and the ability to process passengers. So the right technology really is a win-win-win for the airline, the travel agency, and the traveler. It really enables reduced costs. It helps us streamline operations and increase revenue opportunities and a more personalized experience for the end traveler.
Thank you so much, Mike. That's all the questions I have for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Past and future episodes of TTG Conversations, 5 questions can be found on the TTG YouTube channel. Take care, stay safe, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Great. Bye-bye. Thank you.